Prime Minister, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Barry.
And to that you've said no election before 2013.
Well, I think with his election call, what Tony Abbott was really saying to all of us is even he doesn't believe that his campaign of negativity can last all the way to 2013. That's why he's so desperate for an election now. I mean, he was born to say no, and that's what he's been doing.
So you don't buy the argument that you need a mandate for a carbon tax?
Well, I think all of this sort of melodramatic performance on budget reply night was basically Tony Abbott needing to increase the melodrama in the moment, because he can't talk about the past, he can't talk about his support for work choices, his healthcare cuts, the fact that one of the reasons he's not Prime Minister is that he had an $11 billion black hole in his costings last election, and he's got nothing to say about the future. So the only option he's got is to, puff up and be as dramatic as he can in the moment and just say no, no and no. Ultimately, Barry, I think Australians are going to see through this, and I think the fact that Tony Abbott is so desperate for an election shows that even he knows they're going to see through it.
But as it stands now, the carbon tax will be fully operational before people get their first opportunity to vote on it.
Well, at the last election, Barry, of course, I said to the Australian people we needed to tackle climate change by pricing carbon, and we will be pricing carbon. Yes, of course, I also said that my preferred way of doing it wasn't a carbon tax. I wanted an emissions trading scheme, and we will get there to that emissions trading scheme. I didn't mean to mislead anybody, Barry, but in the parliament that we have now, in order to get to that full emissions trading scheme with a floating price, we will go through a fixed price period, but that's about tackling climate change. And on climate change, of course, some days Tony Abbott believes in it, some days he doesn't, but to effective action to tackle climate change, he always says no.
OK, well, on the budget now and the surplus, a surplus in 2 years, to what extent is that based on a wing and a prayer?
Well, it's based on all of the normal modelling that Treasury does and Treasury forecasts. The same agency that Prime Minister Howard relied on and, Prime Minister Hawke before him, and so the list goes on.
But did you take their most optimistic assessment and then run with that?
No, we didn't. The terms of trade assumption in these budget figures is a conservative assumption, with the terms of trade actually slightly decreasing over time. So we've taken a very prudent approach, as advised by Treasury.
Now, on the family payments issue, indexing the thresholds, did you do that because the system is already unsustainable?
Well, we did it because we want the system to be sustainable for the long term, not just over these 4 years of the budget period, but over the next 10 and 20 years. And Barry, I think there's been a fair bit of carry-on and mischaracterisation of these measures. This is a pause in indexation. It will affect around 2% of families. Rates of payment fortnightly will continue to go up. So that's the sort of change that we've made. We made a comparable change in the past, and then Tony Abbott supported it and indeed said it didn't go far enough, it wasn't tough enough. Now, we can't have, people